in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's the most shocking thing about this to me is that it's kind of shocking. I remember my grandparents on my mom's side, they both died when they were in their 60s. It was expected. You know, people died. 71 would not have made anybody pause. Anybody, but now it's so young. Now it seems so, that guy had another 15, 20 years left. You're not supposed to die at 71. The prime has been extended. Our medications, right? We have better medications. Lipitor changed the game. No reason to have a heart attack these days. What else is there? We just take better care of ourselves. No smoking and the rest. So when somebody 71 dies, who we saw on TV the day before, it's like, man, it is a shock, even at 71. I was curious. I went back and I looked at there's been plenty of senators over the years who died at 71, 69. The last thing anybody said was, this is shocking. No, it was like the way things were up until about, I don't know, when did they invent Lipitor? It's got to be 1990s, I think, is when things started to shift. And so Lindsey Graham, I never met him. I interviewed him a couple of times, but we were never in the same room. Really seemed to have a joy for what he did. He was kind of very, passionate about it in the game of politics. What else about him? I did not know until, yesterday that he adopted his own sister. Parents died when he was 20, and he was 20, and he had an 11-year-old sister, and he had adopted her, became the legal guardian, which is kind of beautiful when you think about it. I also didn't realize, I knew he was in the Air Force, like the National Guard or something, but I didn't know he was a full-time active duty lawyer for the Air Force right out of law school. That's kind of interesting to me. Sometimes I suspected he was a bit of a fair weather friend, that kind of thing. But boy, he had his great moments when he stood up for Kavanaugh. That was really great. Now, what else about him? He was a bit of a hawk, right? He was kind of pro-war, and South Carolina has a lot of, defense contractors. Boeing is down there. Some people, the military-industrial complex. Now, others are giving President Trump a hard time because of how he, I guess on Fox and Friends this morning, I listened to the whole thing. It was great. The thing is, he keeps it genuine and he keeps it real. And the more you talk about someone's passing, the more you get over it a little bit, a little bit each. So we also, don't get that caught up about people who are, not in our immediate family for the most part. We don't. And sometimes we do, but sometimes we don't. Even if you're close to the person, you can kind of imagine life without them because you knew what life was like without them before you ever met them. So there's that. But the age thing is really interesting. President Trump has redefined the game on age. Nobody sees him. I maintain nobody sees him as an older person. Nobody cares about age anymore. Doesn't have to. If you want to make a big deal out of it, you can. Nobody else needs to make a big deal out of it. And so 71 is a shock. And it kind of, I don't know, it inspires me to take very good care of myself. One thing, he was a little bit overweight. And, people kind of understood that he was a bit of a drinker. And I know firsthand when you drink, that is a terrible thing for your body, terrible thing for your heart. Every time I took a gulp of alcohol, my heart would immediately spike, boom, 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 boom. And I'd go to bed and I could feel it beating like crazy. And so what else can we say about him? He voted for the Iraq War. No, I take that back. He got there after that. Maybe he voted for it in the Congress. He was in the Congress 1994 to 2002, and then he makes it to the Senate. And what else? Oh, I do like, and I appreciate, sometimes you could say this is political, but even politicians usually don't go this far. He was very genuinely friendly with President Trump, and they were big-time enemies. And the pros in politics can turn the page and get over it and realize that there was a moment in time where our interests collided and we had no use for each other. In fact, your interests were against my interests. But then you get to another day and then you realize, hey, we can make friends. We can be friends again. Maybe we can work together again. That's the kind of thing with Curtis Sliwa, ran for mayor and then just spent all of his time getting his feelings hurt and holding grudges. That's not a professional. That's an amateur. It's also immature, also, when you think about it. Let me see here. There was a time, I looked it up, when John F. Kennedy was killed. They went to the State of the Union or a joint session of Congress. Lyndon Johnson did. And he spoke before a joint session of Congress. And at that particular point, there was no vice president. And usually the vice president sits behind the president when he's speaking. So President Johnson is newly installed as president. There is no vice president. And the image behind them is of the Speaker of the House, a guy named McCormick, and the President of the Senate, whose name I do not recall. Speaker McCormick is like 71 or 72 years old, but he looks like he's 90. And that's how people look. They aged faster with the cigarettes and the diet and who knows what the hell else. Asbestos all over the place. And the country kind of had a little bit of a panic attack. Like, who's going to pick up if Lyndon Johnson gets killed? Who's going to be next in line? And they're like, this 72-year-old man? That can't happen. That's way too. So it's just fascinating to me. And if you compare movie stars of today with movie stars of yesteryear, what they look like. Brad Pitt is like 63 years old. And you compare him to, John Wayne, who died, I think, right around that age, all craggly and advanced. It's, I don't know if it's skincare or Bloomingdale's or what, but people are taking better care of themselves. So President Trump has been all over the place and, updating us on Iran. Looks like we're going to be the guardians of the Middle East. This is something he's been talking about for many, many decades. The oil. We don't even have it. Well, at this point, since we can't do anything, maybe this will help get a deal, or maybe this will help us get a lot of money. However way it goes, I'm fine with it. I trust him, for crying out loud. I trust him. Somebody said, Larry O'Connor, somebody I like a lot, the memorandum of understanding would have been worthless under Obama, but it meant something under Trump because he's a guy who will pull the trigger on these guys. And that's important. Do I want to do this Kavanaugh thing? I could do the Kavanaugh thing in a little bit. First, maybe you were watching Fox and Friends, maybe you weren't, but I think this is pretty good stuff. I've been in touch with the president myself. I don't want to drop names, but I know what he's thinking right around now. And he actually mentioned this, and he wanted people to see it. So if you didn't see it, it's important to go through it. Let's see here. What do we got here? I want to hear, this is on the Fox and Friends show. He talks about Iran, he talks about Lindsay, but the most amusing part, I don't know if it's going to be in this clip, he praises Lawrence Jones. Lawrence Jones on the couch? But he's like, you know what, Lawrence, I didn't know about it. I didn't know at first. I did not know, but now he's my favorite. And it's just so spot on. Lawrence Jones, when they put him on that couch, it was like, oh my gosh, this is a mistake. He doesn't know when to talk. He talks too much. He doesn't talk enough. He was all over the place, but he settled down, and now he is the heart and soul of that show. Along with Ainsley, Brian, they do a great job, but now it's just it's a great team. Let's see here. Fox and Friends this morning. Let's go ahead with the big one. Cut 25, please. Cut 25.
Well, they have no chance. Look, we have them in the run. Most of their equipment is gone. Their anti-aircraft stuff is gone. We hit them very hard last night. Every time they send a drone, we hit them very hard. But we had a deal. What nobody knows, we had a deal. It was a done deal. And then they broke it. They always break it. We've had 10 deals with these people. And so we're just going to hit them very hard. And we're going to keep the Strait. And we'll probably run it. We'll become the guardian of the Strait. Maybe we'll call it the guardian angel of the Strait. And we should be reimbursed for that. When we do that, we're going to be reimbursed because the other nations are very wealthy. They're on our side. And we can't be expected to do that for nothing, unlike we had for many years. We guarded the Strait for 50 years more. and we never got paid for it. They made all the money, and the United States was just, not. They wouldn't. It's amazing. It's we never made. We guarded it for nothing, and now we're going to guard it. And we're going to get paid for guarding it, a lot of money. But we just want to be reimbursed for doing all of this, for putting our people in danger. But we're really not putting people. We're really saving people. Remember this: they killed 52,000 protesters so far. As of this moment, the number is 52,000. So who's going to protest? And a lot of people are surprised about the protesting, that they haven't. But nobody's going to protest when they get shot. They have AK-47s. They have machine guns aimed at people's heads. If you move 1 foot further, you get shot. And then they'll shoot 10 of them, and everybody flees. Who's not going to flee? They don't have guns.
Right.
So they're a bad group of people. Let me just tell you that. I don't say that often, and I have to live with that statement. They're a bad group of people. They've been this way for a long time. And right now, they're getting their ass kicked. And in the top form, I get a kick when the New York Times and CNN. So you got to understand, their entire military is gone. They got nothing. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. It's all gone. Their anti-aircraft is gone. Their leaders have all been killed. Their best leaders have been killed. They're gone. Khomeini is gone. The sun is 90% gone. And the New York Times writes an article. They're doing better today. Oh, and they have inflation. It's 350%. That used to be at 5% 6 months ago.
Yeah,
they have 350% inflation. And the New York Times writes an article. They're stronger today than they were 4 months ago. These people are sick.
Yeah, obviously the American people don't believe that, Mr. President. They understand who's winning this war. Real quickly, Mr. President.
I actually think it's treasonous, Lawrence. I think it. By the way, how good is Lawrence doing? Okay, is he doing a good job?
I appreciate it, Mr. President. But we want to talk about something.
I had my doubts at the beginning. Ainsley, I had my doubts. I wasn't sure. But I'm telling you, and Griff you have a very good team.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Stop it for a second. Stop. I mean, isn't that true? Do you guys remember Lawrence at first? That's what makes it. He's so honest. And it's also true that he totally works now. And better than works, heart and soul. Of course, you can tell Lawrence is trying to jump in. You feel like, I understand. You get a little self-conscious if you're just sitting there listening, but you ought to just go with it because when you listen, you can learn. All right. Resume, please.
And we know you don't like talking about it because you don't want to talk about yourself, but today marks 2 years since they tried to assassinate you in Butler, Pennsylvania. How do you feel about this on this day? Iran is still trying to take you out. The threat level is high, but you continue to serve our country.
Well, let's put it this way. So I've known Ainsley longer than the two of you. I've known her through a great gentleman, a very handsome man named Sean Hannity. She seemed to be attracted to him for whatever the hell reason, right? So I've known her for a long time. And I once told her a long time ago, I said, this is a very dangerous, being president is a very dangerous profession. I said, why didn't you tell me that, Ainsley? I wouldn't have run. But and now, by the way, the press will take that and they'll say, he wished he didn't run, because they're sick. Because they you can never be sarcastic when you're dealing with the fake news, right? So anyway, but jokingly, but I say, Ainsley, if you would have told me this, I wouldn't have run. So it's 5.2% of the presidents basically are killed. 8.5% are shot at or shot. Like Ford was shot, and actually Teddy Roosevelt was shot. It hit him in the wallet. He had a wallet and a speech in his left pocket right over his heart, and he took one to the heart, and it didn't get through. It actually got through a little bit, but not far enough. It's pretty amazing. But it's a dangerous. 5.2% are assassinated. Now, there's no other industry that anybody can think of. Like I consider race car driving very dangerous. It's 0.1%. Bull riding. I don't know anything about bull riding, but those guys are pretty brave guys. It's
we're going to stop it there. He's totally. I've run these numbers, by the way. He's right. Imagine that. Being a firefighter, you name it. And the universe of people is pretty small. How many people have been president? 45, actually. Not 47, just 45. People get that confused. All right, nice job. Lindsey Graham, what do we say? Hey, he lived with passion, and he lived with his own on his own terms. We can learn a few things, though, from health. Probably too much flying and maybe a little bit too much of the sauce. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light Traps. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats. Greg Kelly.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, here's an item. I think that Ken Griffin is very, very good at money. Ken Griffin, the hedge fund billionaire, something or other. The guy is so rich. I think he's obviously pretty smart. He's trying to buy like 1/3 of Palm Beach Island. Part of the reason with this guy, I think, deep down, Ken Griffin, I mean, every time I hear Ken Griffin, I think baseball player. Wasn't there a Mets, right? There was just, I don't think him. So he's making these kind of sometimes outlandish purchases so people know that, okay, Ken Griffin, the rich guy, he bought the most expensive apartment in New York City. He's got the most expensive house in the country in Palm Beach. That's like a thing with this guy. And now he has, or is making it clear to people around him that in 2028, he is going with Marco Rubio over J.D. Vance. Now, I happen to remember, and very few people remember this kind of stuff, even though it happened basically 10 minutes ago. He was for DeSantis. He was for DeSantis in 2021, 2022. I noticed the same thing about the fake, the purchases of all this stuff, trying to get a name out there that has, make it memorable. It's not enough to be rich, not enough to have influence. He wants to, be super duper famous. And that name, he should come up with a interesting, I wonder what his middle name is. Probably John. I mean, it probably isn't special enough, but I don't know. It's just calling him KG Griffin. KG Griffin would work. KG Griffin, I would think right away, that sounds like a rich guy. And it is the rich guy. Ken Griffin doesn't work. So he's going with Marco Rubio over J.D. Vance. You're going to see a lot of this. It reminds me of going with DeSantis, and that's what he did in 2022. He was pushing DeSantis big time. Right up there with Fox News, by the way. DeSantis. All DeSantis all the time. And but this is different. He's I don't think this is a good move, and it's not a good move for the country. I like Marco Rubio, but there's something about him. He doesn't have the stature for the job. Literally, he's too short and in a television age, and he looks like he's still in the 8th grade. There's something a little middle school about him, right? Just a little bit middle school. Now, I never thought that I would think that the president of Iran, Ahmadinejad, would be a normal person. Does anybody remember this guy, Ahmadinejad? He was the one who went to Columbia University to make a speech. And there was a great deal of outrage about it. Everybody went up there, decrying it. Even some of the students at Columbia did not support this guy showing up. But Ahmadinejad is in Iran right now, and they put him under house arrest. Believe it or not, by today's standards, Ahmadinejad, I'm just impressed that that's his name, Ahmadinejad. People made fun of it back then. That he is possibly talking to Israel, possibly talking to America, and that he could emerge as the new leader of Iran. And the people in Iran, I mean the IRGC and those crazy people, they figured this out. They don't like it, and they put him under house arrest for his secret dealings with Israel. Now, from the Daily Mail, for years, Israel conducted a covert operation aimed at grooming Ahmadinejad as an intelligence asset who, when the time came, could be installed as Iran's new leader. American and Iranian sources told the newspaper. Hope they were authorized to leak this stuff. President Trump did also say, when you have a place like the New York Times bad-mouthing America all the time, and giving up our secrets. It's just treasonous. It could be arguably treason. Giving out the details of the defense systems of Air Force One and what's ready, what's not. I don't know. Do we have to know that? Or does Jonathan Swan of the New York Times have to know that because he's in some sort of bidding war over a book with a jerk who works for the New York Post or the Washington Post or something? More likely the Washington Post. So Ahmadinejad, you remember him? He had a beard. He never wore a tie. Came to Columbia University, made the rounds. He's a lot older now. You just never know. You never say never. Could this guy actually be on our side now, or a little bit more reasonable? Because nobody over there, they just haven't learned. They're going to have to be crushed. They're going to have to be crushed. Have you seen the new footage? We have drones now that work pretty well. We have drones taking out Iranian targets. Hey, do me a favor. We got out. We're just about got another big chunk of this Donald Trump interview. Ooh, and the other thing, Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul, our bucktooth bimbo from Buffalo. Remember that. Kathy Hochul, the bucktooth bimbo from Buffalo. And she is those things. I'm sorry, but she is. I love her, but I don't like her. And I caught her lighting a fire in an office building in New York City. She actually set something on fire. Like, look at me, I'm setting conventional wisdom on fire, and she actually had a lighter and she lit paper on fire. That's against the law. It was all a photo opportunity, the publicity stunt. She's such a silly, silly person. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and it's hard to forget or hard to remember that we're in an election year right now. We're in a total election year right now. Bruce Blakeman has a serious shot to pull this thing off. And Bruce, come on, anytime. We got to get the word out. We have to get this woman out of there because she's doing real damage to real people, and she has no idea. You can see it when you look at her. She's clueless. Here we go. Governor Kathy Hochul, bucktooth bimbo from Buffalo, throwing in the trash and lighting things on fire. Little props, just pieces of paper, but it's dangerous, Kathy. Cut 17, please.
I believe that government should work for the people, not against them. And that's why we're working hard to eliminate outdated, unnecessary bureaucratic obstacles that do nothing more than waste New Yorkers' time and money. An overly complex renewal process for our barbers and our people working in salons and our security guards. You know what? No more. She shoots, she scores. A $25 fee for recreational hunters to get a leash tracking dog license? Not anymore. Goodbye.
Stop for a second. All these pieces of paper that she's crumpling, they're all fake. It's just like, copy paper from Staples. They didn't even go to the trouble of getting the real, laws, and I can see what's written on it. Cutting spending, getting rid of waste. But she's about to commit a state crime. Keep going, please.
Guidelines. Deleted. Truck and bus operator having to have their timesheets be a certain size. Are you kidding me? Goodbye to this. Got it. Barriers to using telehealth for seniors and assisted living. Give me a break. Let's get rid of that. We're just getting started. We're going to keep cutting red tape and deliver a more efficient government for you.
So that she actually lights a fire. And I looked it up, and of course, this is totally against the law. You're not allowed to do this. She's in a government office building, a New York State office building, with a lighter, for crying out loud. How stupid. A juvenile delinquent in the third grade knows not to do that. But there she is. There she is. Oh, and isn't it interesting? She's been in government for a pretty good chunk of time right now. And now she's going to cancel, what the hell was it? $25 fees for, I can't remember. People who want to surf in Rockaway. I don't know. It was pretty trivial, pretty marginal. And she can't even get the photo op right. How about that? Okay. Crime in New York City. I was listening to John Macari over the weekend. You should see what the hell's going on. You probably already know this, but in Times Square, it's become kind of crime central. And that used to be a place where management of the NYPD prioritized it because it's a major kind of commercial hub. A lot of business is done there. A lot of revenue is generated there. It's a great big target. The terrorists would like to get it. So you kept cops in there, sizable number of cops. A couple of things. They've backed off on that because they don't have the number. They don't have the manpower. And they've been playing games with the number, trying to fool people into thinking they have more than they do. And the cops don't have the latitude. They don't have the backing to do what needs to be done. So the criminals have figured this out, and it is mayhem across the city, but particularly in Times Square. And to see that little liar, Mamdani, he has the audacity to say out loud that this is the safest the city has ever been. Not the audacity. This is just the fundamental dishonesty. I mean, the Soviet Union had the greatest crops in the world and the greatest technology and the greatest freedom, and everything was great right up until the day they collapsed. And that's the kind of public messaging we're getting from the Mamdani people. 800-848, Mamdani himself, I should say. Oh, and that lackey, Jessica Tisch, who I think, from what I'm hearing, they've already picked the guy who will be the next police commissioner. I forgot his name. He's somebody in law enforcement. He works in New Jersey right now. I can't remember his name. I can look it up. But he's already interviewed with Mamdani. He's going to be the guy. And Tisch will be out. And she never should have taken that job. Now she will have worked for 3 bad mayors in a row, right? De Blasio, Adams, and Mamdani. And she will have screwed up under each. Forget the press. Forget the bought and paid for op-eds. She's no good. All right, do me a favor. I want to go back to President Trump just for a moment. Hey, you know what? Let's take a break real quick. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. Yeah, I had a conversation, a very, very important one, with a very, very important person. I'll tell you about it in a little bit. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
They have approved assisted suicide in New York, and I believe it takes effect in just a couple of weeks, August. And for this fool to have this kind of power, and something else, I'm sorry, Cuomo, I kind of came to terms with him in a bunch of different ways, some ways, but there's a pattern for governors across the country to pick, not always. I mean, David Patterson's a major exception to this, but to pick weak non-entities for the number 2 spot, because they'll never pose any kind of threat. You can, okay, here they are, and then forget about them, and they go into obscurity. You give them a car and a driver, maybe 2 cars, maybe access to the state plane a couple of times, and wear the jacket and pretend you're the governor when the governor leaves the state for a little while. And wow, that's a lot of ego pay. But now she's got real power. And did you know about this? Assisted suicide. And the problem with that is, number one, it's a sin. Okay, suicide is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It's the opposite with me, by the way. My family, everybody, I have a will. Keep me alive at all costs. I do not care about the costs, financial or emotional. Okay, I'm sorry. I want to live. And I'm going to just have to suck it up one way or the other, because it's going to say in writing, do not pull the plug. And I'm also going to say my organs are my organs. I'm thinking about it. I'm also thinking about donating them. I got a friend whose mom actually needs an organ. She needs a heart. She's on the heart transplant list. And I think about her and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm going to have to sign the card. But the driver's license, right? But then again, people are like, if you sign that card, are they more likely? Are you more valuable dead than alive? That's a big business, those organs. So I don't know. But I do know this. I learned it in church, right? I learned it in life, that suicide is wrong. It's possibly the ultimate sin. And the idea of quitting because it's easier, I know. And what's going to happen is, this is a very, very dangerous first step, because then you'll have to quit. The state may just tell you when to stand down if you're too much of a burden or this, that, or the other thing. Can you imagine? And what about the pressure that's applied on somebody to do this because you become inconvenient? If you have other people doing this and getting points for it, being praised, because not only did they not have to suffer, the family didn't have to suffer. Well, you got to prolong life. Life, it's a beautiful choice, right? Isn't that what that guy said? And a clerk from Buffalo, just signed it into law that you could kill yourself medically, right, if you have a terminal illness of some kind. And she says, I wish my mom could have had this. I wish my mother could have had this. You know, she goes around praying to her mother. And she goes, it doesn't really work that way. I heard her say that. She goes around, what kind of mystical relationship do you have? What's that all about? Your mom, bless her, is not a deity. Is not God, not the Son of God. This strange moment. And she just signed that gosh damn pen. I don't want any part of it. We need Bruce Blakeman urgently to get in there, restore order, not only order, morality and sanity. Sanity. This is insane stuff. And she goes along with it because, well, as a white woman of privilege, and you hang around these communities and you actually think to yourself, and not only does she think to herself, she says to herself that black kids in the Bronx don't know what a computer is. Remember that? That's how highly she thinks of herself and how little she thinks of other people. That's a very, very, stupidity and arrogance is a very, very dangerous combination. Hey, one other little thing here. I was talking about how young 71 is for a guy like Senator Lindsey Graham, right? And it is young. We just don't, it's way too young. I went around trying to find examples of other senators who died and when they died. And when they died, it was considered like not a surprise at all. They died at 71 of old age. That's what they called it back then. And I was going down this rabbit hole and I found something. Richard Russell was the Senate Majority Leader for a good chunk of his life from Georgia, Democrat of Georgia, back when they weren't crazy. And I found something where I just stumbled into it. LBJ is talking to him on the phone, and he's trying to get him to serve on the Warren Commission. And he doesn't want to. Russell doesn't want to. But the way he kind of says you got to do this, he says something that I think for all of us conspiracy buffs on the JFK assassination, he says the quiet part out loud. If you don't mind, cut 18. This is Lyndon Johnson on the phone with Richard Russell in the aftermath of the assassination attempt, and he's trying to get him to be on the Warren Commission. Cut 18, please.
Hoover tells me all three of these shots were aimed for the president, and that this telescopic sight would bring this thing up where you could shoot a man as easy as you could get a man sitting talking to you.
I thought it was just $7 a half thing.
Well, it was a $21 gun, but he said he looked through the telescopic sight himself and said, Mr. President, I could hit a man on that street going 20 miles an hour as easy as I could hit you sitting talking to you. That's his language. Okay, now.
Well, I really, Mr. President, unless you, unless you really think it'd be something,
I know it would be.
It'd save my life. I don't want to save it.
I know you don't want to do anything, but I want you to, and I think that this is important enough, and you'll see why.
Well, now, Mr. President, I know I don't have to tell you my devotion to you, but I just can't serve on that commission.
He doesn't want to do it.
You think about it in connection with it, but I couldn't serve there with Chief Justice Warren. I don't like that man. I don't have any confidence in him. though I realize he's a much greater man in the United States today than almost anyone. And so you get John Stennis. He's
Dick has already been announced, and you can serve with anybody for the good of America. And this is a question that has a good many more ramifications than on the surface. And we got to take this out of the arena where they're testifying that Khrushchev and Castro did this and did that, and kicking us into a war that can kill 40 million Americans in an hour.
Stop it right there. He's saying, you get this? There was obviously a Russian role here and a Cuban role, but we can't have the commission say that. Otherwise, people will demand a war with Russia, with Cuba. And he needs a guy like Russell to make sure the results come out one way, not another way. Fascinating. Totally. LBJ, strange guy. Jumbo, they called him. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?